Good afternoon. Welcome to Show Studio Head to Head. I'm Mimma Vigleziou and I'm going to talk fashion with Colin McDowell.
Good afternoon. Good
Hello.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. Do you survive the fashion marathon?
Yes, it wasn't so much of a marathon. What was the problem was we had to move all over the place, you know.
It is.
I just don't understand it. They've got
East,
a perfect,
west,
they've got a
south,
perfect
north.
place. It turned out to be a very good place, the new venue, and it was empty all day. I mean, it's just madness.
But you live in Soho and when
Should
you...
not tell people
Sorry,
that.
You live in West London.
No,
Weren't
it
you disturbed
wasn't that.
by the traffic and the yelling of
No.
taxi driver?
No. I don't think there was that much confusion, actually. I think they got it right. Rare indeed, but I think they got it
Yeah,
right.
I've seen a few shows there, but not many. And then
That's
we were going
it.
from west to east to
Oh,
north
the
to
rain
south
yesterday.
in the rain. And
Anyhow, people will be thinking how privileged and selfish these people are. They're talking about their own problems of transport. So let's get down to the chase.
yeah, exactly. But let's go on and talk fashion. And
Yes.
we thought about discussing the great Christopher Kane.
More than thought about it, we're going to do it, I hope.
We're going to do it because it's worth it, and it was, I think, a marvelous show, and it was a rather extraordinary collection. He called it rough and broken and then fixed, and coming
Yeah.
after a very difficult year. And I think if this is rough is pretty good.
Exactly. No, I think it was really quite masterly. I thought it was his best for some time. I really did. I thought that he took a lot of risks, but I think that he conquered them all. Look at them. You know, everything is. This was great. This jacket and these trousers, that skirt rather. I love that. The jackets.
I think, two things about Christopher Kane. First of all, he is very consistent, and I think he has this fil rouge throughout his collection. So there are changes
Yes.
and new themes, but you
Yes.
absolutely
He's
recognize
developing.
him.
He's
He's developing,
all the
evolving,
time.
etc.
To begin with, when he first started, it really was a question of will the real Christopher Kane stand up or sit down, because he changed every time, Now I think he's doing exactly that. He's developing his own aesthetic.
It's not a throwing out of ideas just for the sake of it. I
No.
mean, he has ideas.
Oh,
He's
yes.
very creative. He studies materials. He, as you say, takes risks with, weird materials. But then he puts them together in a way that always makes sense. And I
love
think that's
these.
quite and the astounding thing is that it's very wearable. It's incredibly desirable. It's beautiful in a real sense of the word.
And what he is, of course, which comes over very strongly here, he's an incredibly sophisticated colorist. The colors he puts together, and also textures. Plastic and lace are not normal bedfellows,
No.
but they work.
And spray paint, car spray paint.
That's right.
Apparently,
all of that.
apparently that was quite difficult to obtain. He said somewhere I read that if he hadn't had the caring facility with all the experience and the means that they have, he couldn't have done it. I don't remember where I read
Oh,
it.
really?
But it wasn't just spraying car paints on
No, but
fabric.
was it real
was
car
much more
paint?
well, that's what I read. Then
But what happens if something's spilt on it? How do you clean? Do you take a J-cloth with you wherever you go?
I have no idea.
Maybe
But probably
the
that's what was
answer.
complicated, the treatment after. But I don't know, I'm looking at the show now as we speak, and I was thinking this morning when I was re-seeing it, the fringes, people have done that last season and he didn't, and then suddenly he comes out with his take of it, and it's so
masterly,
new,
but it's
and it's so
masterly.
ahead, and it's so
Yes.
like showing everybody, this is the way you do it. And I
Yes.
thought it was amazing, and the colors. Those, acid colors, as he called them.
Yes.
Just incredible. And
I worry a little in case there's some sort of unhappiness within him that he's making these jagged sort of things. I don't think there is, because when I interviewed him a few weeks ago,
I read your
he
piece.
was
It's
full.
really-
He said a marvelous thing. He said, "I'm happy just being," which is a marvelous.
That was the end, I think,
yeah,
of your
marvelous
piece.
thing to say.
You said, what
know?
next? And he said, I
happy
think
just
I'm happy
being.
just
Yeah.
being. But as he said, and everybody knows he went through a very difficult year.
Yes, he
He's
lost his mother,
mom.
and he was very close to his mother.
Changes in the company. And actually, I read what he said about this collection, but I don't really see it. I see a lot of optimism. Maybe that's the rebirth. Maybe that's
Well,
the
colour,
sun after the storm.
look how lively and optimistic the colour is. I think it's terrific.
We've seen a lot of colour in this season,
Yes.
but I think nobody did it as beautifully as
Well,
it did. Do you agree?
no, he took risks with really quite harsh colours, like that limey, yellowy colour, but
It worked.
It worked, you see.
And that blue with the
I
black.
don't know how he'll. The blue and the black are a classic colour combination, of course,
yes.
but I don't quite know how these things with plastic and everything on them will actually sell. I think people would be a little frightened, and if you sit down with it, will it start to scratch or whatever? I don't know.
You're talking about the plastic cable
Yeah,
tie?
no,
the one on the
bits,
actual garment.
The bits that were floating from the garments, yes.
I don't know, but probably there will be an editing of the collection also
Certainly.
for commercial
Certainly.
reasons.
It's too extreme, but they have to keep the elements. I love this black. I thought this black one with the sort of bomber jacket or whatever
Yes.
was really terrific.
Incredible. It looks like
It's just
oil,
so beautiful.
It looks like oil stains, and
Yes,
in the
exactly.
sun with all the colors.
Yes. Or
that
where the
change.
car's been standing or something.
Exactly. That's really beautiful. But
you could put that on a wall and it would look like a piece of art. It
they
really
do.
would.
Some of these looks actually do look like piece of art. But I really urge the people that are interested to go into the details, because if you look at the shows and if you look at the bags, the accessories, everything is exquisitely well designed.
Yes, absolutely.
And made in very original ways. And I even think that those plastic cables would probably sell for a lot of money, because they say Christopher Kane
They do, exactly.
on top of them,
Exactly.
and they use like
Yes, they will sell.
necklaces
Yeah, they'll be the
and
must-have.
hair bits, and
Yeah,
it's
they will be the must-have. I love this black and burnt orange, the one on that side, in the middle.
In the middle?
That sort of burnt orange colour, which I thought was really sophisticated with black.
yes.
Most people would have done a pure orange or pure red or something, but he didn't. He did something.
And you were talking to me before, very interesting, about how a good designer has a line.
Yeah.
So what do you think about Christopher Kane and that theory? Does he have a line?
Oh yes, he does, of course. He has a line which he is able to subvert. It's basically like that, but he can do things with it by having things sticking out, but it's still there. It is still a line. It's very difficult. If he was so kind as to have sent us a dress, we could have shown.
We could show you.
Maybe that's what we should do. We
Maybe you
insist-
should ask, and
we
then
should
I can give you my size.
Insist upon a rail,
Yeah, that would be great. But I think that was probably his best collection because of the evolution. Because I was looking this morning up all his, 2-3 past years collection, and I could see a fil rouge, an evolution, and that was so interesting. And sometimes people, they just go from one place to the other because they either copying ideas or they don't have ideas. And he has this, this way of being which is so rigorous, and it makes me think of Nicolas Ghesquière, to talk about someone who doesn't show in London, but I remember him at the beginning of Balenciaga. That was exactly it. You always understood where it was coming from.
That's a very interesting thing you've said. You see, I think that Christopher Kane is one of, there may be another one which we'll talk about later, is one of the English designers who can sit in the same room as the triumvirate, Ghesquière, Tichy and Eddie Schliemann.
Yeah,
Who are the leaders? If we exclude older people, more experienced, like Marc, Marc Jacobs. I think Marc Jacobs is supreme. I really do at the moment.
It's funny, we discussed this once. I'm not so in agreement, but I might be wrong.
I think he's right.
So what's the triumvirate here? Who do we put with Christopher Kane?
I would put JW.
Totally agree. Gareth?
I would put Gareth Pugh and Thomas Tate.
So there are 4.
So there are 4. Well,
Yeah, I can accept it.
people like me aren't expected to know how to count, for goodness sake.
No, I know, but because we said,
no.
because it's true in Paris,
Yes.
I would probably put the same 3 you did in the younger generation.
Yes.
But what is interesting is that the one we mentioned in London are younger. They're 10 years
Oh,
younger.
much.
So
yes, exactly.
they are even.
So there's a real future.
Yeah,
There's a real
there
future.
is a real future.
This is JW.
Yes.
I love these cute little bras which look like sunglasses.
Yeah, they do.
I think they could become the equivalent of Yves Saint Laurent's pointed African breasts, you know,
Oh, yeah.
from the 70s, you know.
Yeah.
I'm still looking for the new Yves Saint Laurent, because we need an Yves Saint Laurent, because what he did was he produced extraordinary clothes, but they also made clothes that people could buy in Rive Gauche and wear.
I think that's Christopher Kane.
You know, I think it's London.
It's very close
I think
to
it's
that.
coming to London from London. I think it's this guy or Christopher Kane.
I think more Christopher Kane, for the only reason that I think, as much as I absolutely love this show of JW, and I think his creativity is astonishing, the difference, and maybe you will disagree, is that J.W. Anderson is an extraordinary creative director.
Right.
Christopher Kane is a tailor also. He's
Well,
a
it's
fashion
funny
designer.
Now, it's a funny
It's
thing
a different
you should
thing.
say that. I'm getting very worried about the coat. Has it become an endangered species? I mean, how many coats do these young designers do?
Yeah,
You know, a real winter coat. They
Thank
don't.
God for
It's
Shalayan,
all-
who does beautiful
it's-
coats.
Well, yes, but you know, it's all dresses.
It's quite true,
It's all
but this was
dresses.
spring, summer, and we've seen a lot of
No,
lightness.
I think it's because they go to colleges and they're not taught how to cut. You're taught how to cut if you go and work in an atelier in Paris or something.
So you'll wear Christopher Kane with Max Mara on top.
I think they could all learn a lot from Max Mara, in fact, because
They make amazing
Max
coats, so-
Mara coats are superbly cut.
That's why I said that.
Superbly cut. And I think it's a pity, you know, that it'll come back. There'll be someone who suddenly becomes obsessed with a coat, and he'll show them, and someone will say, "Oh, what's that, Mummy?" And Mummy will say,
that used to be a coat."
Used to be called a coat many years ago."
You know, it's global warming. Probably they know that soon we will not be cold anymore.
Well, I hope we are, because coats are they're a bedrock of high fashion.
Can we go back to J.W. Anderson?
Yes,
because I would
sure.
like to have your take on this. I think it was an extraordinary collection, but he doesn't care about the fact that it can be worn or not. I think maybe he does,
Oh,
but
I'm sure he does.
But I don't care that much here, because I like to talk about fashion, and this is fashion. But it's very difficult to sell that little bra that
I
you
think
say
that's
you like
very
so much.
no,
and
no.
it's-
If it catches on, if young girls think it's funny or witty,
Yeah, but you have
then
to have tiny little boobs.
a lot of
No,
young people
most,
do.
no.
No, all right. But I think what is the problem really is how he is going to reduce the top of the sleeves. It's called a gigot, but most people call it a leg of mutton sleeve. It was Edwardian and
The one that looks
Victorian.
like rugby players.
Yes. Now it could be
I think
an
it's
homage
beautiful.
to the rugby cup that's being fought out all over the world at this moment. You know about.
Yeah, I know. I don't watch, but I know it's here.
So
But-
it could be that, or it could be a maybe he made them very quickly when he heard that Jackie Collins had died.
Yes.
You know,
I don't think he did.
I'm joking.
But you know what? I was sitting there and I was very close to the models, and I thought those leather were exquisite. You wanted to reach out and touch them. You wanted to. The materials here, I don't know if it comes from the Loewe thing, but I was amazed by the leather and the use of the materials. I mean, the styling probably is not very wearable, but there's so much in here that is going to be so desirable and
The heart and
recognizable.
Twisted white stuff.
That pattern also coming
Yes.
back in almost every
Yes.
look was.
No, I think
was very
someone like
interesting.
him and Christopher Kane, they've got it made. They can virtually do whatever they want. Their money will be found if they say, "I want this particular
Yes.
quality." They will get that.
Yes.
And this is very rare and very welcome with people who work.
Well, they have two
in
big
London.
groups behind them also.
Exactly.
They're very blessed by
yes.
that.
And I think that I loved also Thomas Tate's leathers, the suede leather skirt, but also the shiny. I assume they were leather, shiny patent leather pants and again a skirt.
I have to admit I
let's go
missed
see
the
if we
show,
can
so
see it.
I can't tell
Well,
if it was suede or leather.
Let me show you, because I think
Yes.
you'd like them too.
Well, I've looked up the show, but I wasn't there, so I
They were really very sharp, I thought, and very attractive.
I was a bit surprised though by
whether-
Thomas Tate's show. And there was such a
There's one. See, the black and the orange.
black and orange trousers that we see there, the
Yes,
jeans.
yes. And they are, I think, the leather ones. Let's go down. All of these. The middle one there, that was the most beautiful.
skirt.
Tactile skirt. It was lovely. You felt you wanted to touch it straight away.
Okay.
You know? And it's.
But isn't that quite surprising as a Thomas Tate show?
Yes.
Or am I wrong?
Yes. No.
I was. If you had put
It
me in
doesn't
front of
shout-
the screen without telling
no, it
me,
doesn't shout
I wouldn't have
Thomas
said Thomas
No.
Tate.
But I think at his stage, you know, he's a little way behind Christopher Kane. I used to get a little irritated with Christopher Kane. Every time it was different, completely different designer, I used to think. You know, well, he's going through the same thing. Maybe
No.
JW is as well, you know? Because how long has JW been going? 4 years, 5 years?
I would
Certainly
say
not
maybe
as
4 or
long
5 years.
as not as long as Christopher.
But you know, we have this memory of Christopher Kane also for Versus. The first
Yes.
time we noticed
Yes,
him,
of
it was
course,
when, and
that's
that's quite
true.
some time ago.
That's
but
true.
I'm not very good with telling years and seasons, so sorry.
No, well, I think we're much the
They,
same.
they
in
will
that
Google
respect.
it. But let's go for a second to if you wish to Gareth Pugh.
Yes, I'd like.
I was so happy about this show.
And so was I.
I
because-
came out happy and I thought the music, the atmosphere, the clothes, the colors, I absolutely loved it.
I tell you what it had, and what he's always had, and that is command. These
Absolutely.
clothes command attention. Needless to say, most of the journalists in this country came out hating it.
Oh,
And
really?
and it's hardly been mentioned. I really feel he has to go and show in Paris because this is so beautifully made, so strong. 3 colours, red, white and black.
And
That's all.
usually
That's all,
he
you
usually
know.
is black and grey, so it
Yes,
was,
so
it
it
was
it
sort
was
of
a
a
move on,
surprise.
yes.
And I thought, I don't know, I also think, you know, when you go to a show, I also think that even if it's simply a catwalk with music and lights, there must be some consistency. There must be something that makes you feel a holistic experience, which sometimes is not the case. And this one was one of my favorites as an experience.
Yeah. I loved everything about it, but I have.
It was a little bit over the top, but you know,
that's
but
what's
there is Gary
important.
Pugh.
That's what's important. I mean, think of people who have become world names. Yves Saint Laurent, he went over the top many times.
Yeah.
Gaultier did.
I was thinking, it makes me think a little bit of Gaultier.
Miu Miu and Prada, they go over the top. I mean, there are some extraordinary things that come down
Yes.
Mucha's runway. And in a way, when you first see them, you sort of pull back and think, oh my God. But they're marvellous. They're consummate planning, you know, the planning in it.
Yeah, also because if you dissect this from the styling and the styling of the show and the makeup and the hair, then there's a few things that are absolutely wearable.
Yes, absolutely. I just thought the wit of having things made of coins.
Real coins,
I
by
know
the
they
way.
must have weighed a ton.
They,
They
real
must
pennies.
have weighed a ton.
There
you
were
know.
pennies
You know what
everywhere.
it's like if you've got a.
You know that coat that
yes.
we see there with the people, maybe they can see like gold.
Yeah, it's all.
neck, but actually
all-
it's real coins,
all
it's money.
coins. It's all
So you
pennies
really go
or
around
whatever,
showing off
yes.
money.
Yes,
Which is rather interesting and ironic.
a witty take. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but I thought it was very interesting and it was very creative, and at the same time there was some wearable clothes, which is not always the case with Gareth Pugh, is it?
No, these are style clothes. These are clothes for big moments and people, women with enormous confidence. Because obviously the lengths and everything will be adapted for actual customers. But I just think that it's got it. It's hard to put it into words. It's got style.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I mean, you have to have good legs to wear that red latex
yes,
shoes that become
I
ties,
agree.
and
Yes.
unfortunately, probably the wrong people will wear it.
Well, the problem with
But the rest,
well, the problem with
more
the
wearable.
English woman, by and large, is they have legs like tree trunks.
Colin,
Well, am I not allowed to say that?
it's not very kind of you.
Well, No, I didn't think we had kind.
We have some
No one
incredibly
told- no
beautiful
one told
women
me
in this
that.
country with amazing legs.
Yeah, we have an awful lot.
Like in every country.
Have you
Let's
heard
face
of a man called Norman Hartnell, who was the Queen's dressmaker for many years? And he was quite an old man when the miniskirt came.
Mary
in.
Quant?
And he was asked if he thought it would catch on, and he said, "Oh my God, I hope not. The English woman has knees like rock cakes."
Oh.
Fabulous thing to say. Fabulous thing to say. Anyhow, shall we go on before I get into trouble?
What would you like to say? Yeah, exactly. Would you like to say, to see some...
I would like to see Burberry.
Okay, let's go to
Let's go
Burberry.
to Burberry, should we?
Well, maybe we should start to talk about this with Burberry, the spectacle. You know, we've seen spectacles all over the world for cruise, people being flown here and then, and he does it at home with a 30-piece orchestra, with his favorite singer from when he was a child.
Everybody's favourite singer. Oh, I
Everybody's
thought
favorite
she was
singer.
fabulous.
She was
Her
fabulous,
voice was
yes.
still
She's got
as
this
strong as it ever
dark,
was.
rough,
You got that
low voice,
yes.
yeah.
No,
and
I mean, it was a
I
masterstroke.
thought the choice of music was less beautiful than last season because it was all these very upset and vexed lovers. You know, it was like all these women being cheated upon and
Well, she sings,
being angry.
She sings of the sadness of love. And that's
Yeah,
what
she
she's
sings
about.
of the sadness of love,
You know,
exactly.
That's what she's about.
Ending with
I
Only You,
thought
which was...
she was fabulous. But I was
I
worried.
love the roundness of the...
Well, I am wondering why he did that. It's almost as if he thought, for this season, she, with a little orchestra, was more important than the clothes. The clothes had to walk around there. I thought psychologically that was quite interesting. You know, he's had singers before and bands, and very good ones. But they've always been at the top of the runway. This time, it was bang
In the middle.
And I think that's really
There's merit in what you say.
psychologically very interesting indeed.
But you know, if you, I guess you didn't watch it back online because you don't do that usually. But they were filming from above sometimes, and it was extraordinarily beautiful to see it from above. You know, this round.
The sunken orchestra pit.
Exactly, and as you know, they Snapchat it, Facebook it, live stream it. So the way it was filmed was extraordinary. However, as you rightly said, it was so distracting from the fashion.
Oh, no one was
and we've been speaking
no
for
one was
5 minutes
looking
without
at
even mentioning.
No one was looking at the clothes.
Exactly. So
They were looking
what
at
do you
her.
think about that? Do you think it's...
I think it was, well, I don't know why he did it really. I can see why he had her.
I think it's for the internet and for the digital
Maybe it
era.
was-
I think
yes.
it's for their digital presence. Don't you think
Well, I don't know. He's had this standard runway for many years.
Yeah.
And it works exceedingly well. And he's been able to have, as I say, bands and singers, everything. I just think he felt she was so powerful, he wanted her to be in the middle, you know?
It could be.
Maybe she said that was the deal, you never know.
It
One
could
doesn't
be.
know.
What I think that it's all made for the sake of good photography and good streaming.
course, of
and I
course.
tell you, I mean, if you have a chance, look at the streaming, watch the
I will,
streaming they
I
have
will.
online. It's rather beautiful.
Yes.
But can we talk about the collection for a little while?
Indeed
Because
we
I
can.
think it was Christopher Bailey going in a totally different direction.
Tell me which direction. How do you mean?
I mean,
what-
very different from what I imagined Burberry would look like. There was a little bit of everything, like, you know, like gowns with backpacks and trenches
I thought the
and
backpacks were a little silly, I have to say.
The-
They'll sell like
the
mad.
styling was a
but-
little bit silly. I think the pieces
Well-
themselves were good, but there was something disturbing in the styling.
Well, I know what you mean. There's something slightly disturbing in the design as well. I mean, you know the gold? It's called
Yes,
frogging
yes.
in England. I thought that was totally random and
There was too much, you
gratuitous.
think, or
No,
just...
it didn't say anything. It didn't lead anywhere. You know, it's like me putting something on there, just because I think, oh, that's somewhere we can put it. So I don't know, and I didn't like this coat edged in the one
In
that's
gold.
just as big in gold. I thought it looked rather démodé.
I think it was, yeah, I see what you mean. I think it was, for me, what disturbed me was that there was a little bit of too many themes, too many things that didn't, maybe I missed the point. I always think it's my fault, but there was too many things not talking to each other, which is exactly the opposite of what I said for Christopher Kane. And if you present a collection, I always wish that you could have a point of view. And there are many points of view here, or not
there are aspects. There are aspects of his point of view. I mean, his vision as a designer is very clear, and that's not going to change. We don't want it to change. I think he's playing slight variations, but
what's his vision?
I don't think it's still chic, classic, modern looks. You know.
Yeah.
And I think that he gave us those. I'm so glad he brought that. Can we go down again a little? I'm so glad he brought that. No, we can't. Why not? We can. I'm so glad he brought that white lace coat for the man from the menswear collection, because
it's exactly the same.
It is.
Or
Yes,
it's
no, I'm sure it's the same. Okay, I don't think it's going to sell something like that very easily to the English mail, but I just think it's so sophisticated. On the right guy, and he's the right guy, tall and thin, I think it's terrific. And it takes us right back to gentlemen in the 16th, 17th, 18th century who were smothered in lace, you know?
Really?
Oh, yes. Yes, lace, jabot, lace here.
That's
lace
coming back
there.
big time.
You know, and I think it'd be great if it comes back.
Yes.
I want to see rugby players wearing lace. You know, that's when we know it's coming back.
That would be fun. But you know, to go back to this collection, if I take look by look, there's nothing that disturbs me. I think they're all chic, they're all quite fresh. There's modernity, there's, you know, interesting use of materials and colors. It's the totality of it that I don't understand, and I wonder, does it matter? Does it matter for you that, you know, a collection is edited down, it's not too long, and it has 1/2 point of views?
It doesn't worry me particularly, for the simple reason, you know, if I see a woman in Burberry,
yes,
I should like her in it almost certainly, because they're such flattering clothes.
Yes.
And I don't care about what the rest were, because they're not there. If I saw 10 women in Burberry, I might think, oh, well, I'm not sure about this. See, I didn't understand the rucksacks.
Yeah, they introduced it. It's the first rucksack.
I didn't understand it. Oh, did they really?
Yeah,
Years
I read it.
ago.
I read it in their notes, the show notes, that they were introducing the Burberry rucksack. You know, it's a commercial thing, and it will sell.
It'll sell
like
to the. It will sell to the young.
What do you sell? Hot cakes, and not
sell
breads.
to the young. That's true.
It's you know, the backpack is
back.
So
we're being hypercritical, because
it was a lovely collection, and it was a beautiful aspect.
So
yes.
one has to be
and he's such a lovely
critical,
person. I hate not saying good things about Christopher Bailey, but
no, I agree.
But it wasn't the collection that made my heart beat like not Christopher Kane's one.
No. Because, in a way, of course, it's not really fair to say that, because Christopher Kane is still climbing the ladder. He's at the top of the ladder. And if we think of people like Armani, for example, or if you go way back to Balenciaga, you know, once they got what they wanted to say and how they wanted to say it, they more or less kept saying it with variations.
Yes.
All
but
the
also,
time, you know?
let's face it, when you have to cater for a 3 billion brand or 2 billion brands, or for a 20 million brands, I mean, it's very different.
Exactly.
It's very different. So I always say to people, you know, the mission of a Gucci or a Burberry or a Louis Vuitton or an Armani, to mention the big ones, is not the same as the mission of a Christopher Kane or a Balenciaga. So, you know, and I think he's doing a great job for the job he has.
Yes. Is that the one that you're talking about? Is that the shot from above? No.
Well,
before the audience
that's like
came
a graph,
in,
yes.
Yes.
But then if you see it with the audience and the orchestra, it's beautiful. It looks like a watch, a wristwatch.
Yes, it would, of course.
And it's rather interesting. Yes. Before we have 2 minutes to wrap
up.
All? But yeah, it's nice talking to you. Goes quickly. You know what?
We haven't quarreled.
Orange is the new black, I think. I've seen a hell of a lot of orange during these collections, and one who did it well for me was Jonathan Saunders. Do you agree?
I want to talk about Jonathan. Have we got time to look?
Yeah.
I thought this was a great collection. Mind you, he was so lucky. He took
With
a
the
chance.
weather. We were in full summer.
These were clothes for full summer,
Yes.
and I thought they were terrific. I've had qualms about him in the past, but I really think that this was a winner. Because
agree.
of its
Was one of his best to me.
sophistication. And here we are talking about clothes that women want to wear and can wear.
And they're flattering.
And they're very flattering, and I thought his colour sense was great. No, this was right up there with one of my favourites.
Yes.
And
Well, I wish we could talk
looked
about many
great.
more, because there's much more, but maybe in the next occasion. Thank you so much, Colin.
thank you so much. Thank you.